Hello, my name is Ann DeSantis. I'm the director for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. I want to tell you what's been going on with us since we've been in existence in 2015. The Mercedarian friars came together and decided that they wanted to start a foundation to make outreach to families in crisis. And that's exactly what they did when the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation came into existence as a nonprofit 501c3 headquartered in Philadelphia. Since that time, I became the director in the beginning of 2018, and we basically have 4 facets to what we do. We offer prayer, priestly consultations, podcasts and videos, and also programs and events. Now, if you've never been to our website, just to invite you to go to nonatus.org and check out all the great things that we've been doing. Because since that time, since we've been in existence, we've now helped hundreds of families who are going through really challenging times. And as you all know, we went through a really challenging time in 2020. So I'd just like to invite you to go and check out the great things that we're doing. And there's more to come. If you or your church community would like us to come and do some type of an event where we can talk about what we offer in terms of that pastoral accompaniment and making outreach to families in crisis, please do reach out to us. And I'm just so grateful to be able to serve people like you and your families. So again, learn about us at nonatus.org. Thank you.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Ann DeSantis.
Hi, welcome to Journeys in Faith here on this Friday evening. It's wonderful to be here with you during this beautiful Advent season, almost Christmas. And with me this evening, I have an amazing guest for you. I have Carlos Solorzano. He's the author of the book, I Am His Mother, and the co-founder of HCDTalks Ministry. That's Humana Corpus Dignitate, where he works with Angelica Della Lana. They're both friends of mine too. Now, the style of this show is a little bit different this evening because Carlos is going to present to you not only his life and ministry, but also talk about his book and also what's to come in the future for him in the ministry. So welcome, Carlos. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is Carlos Solorzano, and I'm honored to be on Journeys in Faith. And I'm here to tell my story, a little bit about my faith journey, as well as some of my work, both as a Catholic author, as well as a member of a Catholic ministry. So I was born in Carson, California, a little while ago. For some people, I'm a bit older than I may look. I grew up I'm a cradle Catholic. I was the youngest of 2 children. I have an older sister. My father was a Catholic high school teacher for many years. He taught language. He was a Spanish teacher as well as a theology teacher. And my mom worked for the city of Carson. She was an administrative assistant. And they had actually met at church as young adults. My father is 3 years older than my mom. And they, married at the church they met, and they were both from devout Catholic families. So the faith was something that was always a big part of my life. And since my everyday life was so normal to me, there were a lot of things I didn't realize, and I guess in some ways took for granted for many years. My parents were married until my father passed away, which of course I see more and more today is a blessing. That was actually close to my 40th birthday when that happened, so I was blessed to at least have my father for a long time. But they were both very supportive parents, very loving parents. I always felt their love and protection as well as their guidance. They were both very good at explaining things. If we were disciplined, why we were being punished. If there were certain things that were expected of us, the reasons why. I never felt like their expectations were unreasonable. And that would include the way they taught the faith. I mean, there was certainly a sense of right and wrong, like there was such a thing as sin. There were certainly things we could do as human beings that would offend God, and we were wrong to do that. I think the best thing, though, was my father was really good. He was actually a master catechist as well. And he was really good at teaching the faith, like really breaking it down and making it simple. And I think that was really important because I think sometimes we're really good at overcomplicating things. And my father was just not that kind of person. He was very, very intelligent man. But my father actually had a PhD and 3 master's degrees. So he was a very smart person. But he never wanted to use his education or his background to sort of display how wonderful he was. He was a very learned person. And it really hit me because years later when I came across this quote of Einstein, I believe he had said something like, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you yourself don't understand it, because it really isn't that difficult. So my father was good at really explaining the faith. He'd get into the catechism and some of the official teachings, what scripture would say. But I think it was a great imitation of Christ because of the fact that, Christ was a simple person, as he was a carpenter. Obviously, being the God of the universe, he had the omniscience that none of us could ever dream of having. But he knew how to reach people. The parables, just the way he would interact with people. So it really isn't that complicated. It's because it's all rooted in love. Now, my mother, on the other hand, the nurturer, if you will, she was very much, okay, this is right, this is wrong, this is what God expects of you. And if you sin, it wasn't so much, here's where you're going to go to hell, which I know some kids unfortunately get, but it was, if you ask Jesus to forgive you, he will. So to my parents, the making sure that my sister and I were aware of the loving God that we served, because obviously God is also merciful. He's not just the king and the judge. He's merciful. A great quote I always tell my students, so I'll get to my teaching background in a bit, is I came across was, if all of your sins were but a drop of water, my mercy is as vast as the ocean. So, if we're accountable for what we've done, God will forgive us. And that was something that was really drummed in my head. And I'm glad because of the fact that I encountered a lot of people of faith later in my life who didn't have that. And it's really disappointing to see that because there was so much more to our faith than just this hellfire preaching. And they never really had an awareness of a loving and forgiving God. And that was actually really, really sad. So anyway, I actually went to public school most of my life. I attended Dolores Street Elementary School in Carson, California, which is where I'm from. I lived 5 blocks from there, so it was like the whole walking to school bit. And it was nice because I got to meet a lot of kids from different backgrounds. Carson is a very multicultural city. And it was interesting because even though it was a public school, I went to school with kids who were Protestant, who were Jehovah's Witness, who were Mormon. Of course, with Protestantism, there's different denominations, so there was a lot of different students with different backgrounds. And then there were the occasional, Buddhists and Muslims. And it was amazing how many times we would sit out in the playground and talk about religion. And I always noticed that we were always kind of in a sharing mode. And that was, in most cases, there were a couple times, you're Catholic, oh, you're one of those weirdos, and that's fine. But it was certainly an interesting experience to go through that. It wasn't until high school that my parents decided I had to go to Catholic school. I wasn't happy about it because I went to school with kids that I knew since kindergarten. And there were actually a few that I went to preschool with that I had been going to school with all these years. And it is what it is. So I wasn't really happy about the idea of having to start over. I was just thinking this is not what I want to do. I want to finish school with my friends. But well, I was sort of decided for me. So what made it kind of hard too is I went to the school my father worked at, which was, not like the teachers were gonna, they would take attendance and, oh, you're Mr. Solorzano's kid. I'm like, yes, please continue. I didn't want to stand out for that reason. I just wanted to be me. Now, this would obviously mean that this would be the first time in school I'd be taking theology classes. I would say my freshman year of high school was the first time I really sat in a class and thought, this is actually kind of cool. I mean, I'm enjoying learning this. I mean, obviously, a lot of it was stuff that I knew from my family background, us attending Mass every week. And, there were times that we said the rosary as a family. And, my parents tried to give us a Catholic upbringing. But, to actually sit and have assignments and having to reflect on what we learned and write written reflections, it was good. To be honest, I wasn't always the best student. I mean, I was still a teenager, so, my mind was on other things. One of the great loves of my life was because of my parents, is my parents love music. And so there was great music in my house, from Latin jazz to R&B, Motown. You had some of the great singers like Barbra Streisand, Neil Diamond. My parents loved bands like Chicago, the Doobie Brothers, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Journey. A lot of good music. And so I am a musician. I'm still a musician to this day. I actually have an associate's degree in music and from El Camino College in Torrance, California. And I actually play a number of instruments. I write songs. I've put out records of my own. I've put out songs, and I've been in bands where I made a creative contribution to the group. I mean, I'm mostly a drummer, but I mean, I'm capable of writing music. So I was able to do that in some cases. So yeah, I have a little bit of a musical legacy out there. And that's fine. It's something I'm proud of, but but that was another example of my parents' support. But that was my big dream at the time. I wanted to be a professional drummer in a big band. You're a kid, you have big dreams. But the faith part was always there. So I graduated high school, and I went on again to El Camino College in Torrance. I pursued music because I didn't know what else to study. And it was great because at the time I had been taking drum lessons privately since I was in the third grade. And I did until I was about 21. So you're talking to kind of like a K through 12 year span. I had some great teachers, but when I went to community college, I started studying theory and started studying like piano and guitar and learning how to notate all that and really becoming a musician, not just a drummer that reads music, but a musician. And it was really exciting to work with fellow students and we try out some of the things we learned. And at that point, I was already playing in nightclubs. I was playing in rock bands, and we had the big dreams of making it big, getting a record deal, and it's fine. But my faith was always there. I think the first thing that it did was it gave me purpose. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't have my moments of, for lack of better words, silliness or stupidity is probably better. Not to say that there weren't things in life I was perhaps curious about and at least talked with people about, or some cases tried, whatever. But it kept me out of a lot of trouble. And a lot of it, first thing was I want to be around people that want to get things done. So I prefer to work with musicians in that setting because you're going to deal with people on a regular basis. And then, just when I'd be out in public, I mean, I was certainly out in the Los Angeles music scene, and some of it can get a little crazy. I pretty much stayed away from all that. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. Maybe there was something, and there's a presence in this scene, if you will, that sort of I never was comfortable with it. So I ended up just kind of staying away from that. It was very common for me to play the show and perhaps talk to some people and do my thing, but I pretty much just stayed out of it, and I know my faith upbringing was what helped. Well, I transferred to Cal State Long Beach, and I did study music for one more year, but by that point it was starting to really, my heart wasn't in the same place. And that can be a whole other podcast on a whole different conversation. But long story short, my senior year of college, I ended up changing my major to religious studies. So I'm a two-time graduate from Cal State Long Beach. My bachelor's degree is in religious studies, the general, take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. And then my master's degree, I went on to start and finish it 6 years later, is in religious studies with the concentration in New Testament and ancient Christianity. So after I finished college with my undergrad degree, I actually started teaching theology at the high school level and have ever since. I've worked at a number of schools. I worked at a few schools in the Los Angeles area for the Archdiocese, and I moved to the Tucson area in 2006, and I have worked at a couple of Catholic high schools there. And at one of those high schools, I was actually exposed to theology of the body. First, a colleague of mine had gone to the Institute, and she had obtained a number of copies of Christopher West's Beginner's book. And I read it, and I heard a little bit about it. I didn't really know a lot about it. But the book really floored me. I mean, it blew me away. I thanked her for the book, and the next thing I know, probably a couple months later, I was asked, would you actually want to go to the Institute and study? And I was like, really? And it was such a blessing because my school paid for me to go. And I went out of curiosity, and the first class just shook me to the core in a good way. And within time, I made the decision to get certified. So I ended up going to the Philadelphia area 8 times in oh goodness, it would have been I want to say about an 8-year span. There were some years, we didn't have the funds, so I had to wait. Some years I went twice. It was kind of cool, but it was always great. I got to meet some amazing people that I'm still in touch with to this day. And it really challenged me as a man, as a Catholic man, as a husband, as a father, and really wanting to commit to my faith and really understanding why I wanted to be Catholic. And it was a beautiful experience in that a lot of the inner feelings I had about myself as a child of God were confirmed in a lot of, God bless him, Pope John Paul II's teachings. The Institute is filled with some amazing people, and I've been blessed by them since I met them. My job has been good. I mean, there's been challenges as a theology teacher in the last several years have been challenging because of the way our culture is moving. But the one thing that I've learned is it really has forced me to stay current with what's going on in the world and to really listen to these young people, because a lot of times we get overwhelmed by what they're doing or what they're asking us. But what we have to understand is they're hungry. Like they really want to, they have questions. And, some of them certainly absorb the culture, but a lot of their questions are challenging the culture. We have to remember these are young people that are very smart and they have good hearts. They're wonderful people, and they can see through a lot of the smoke and mirrors that put in front of them. And many of them are frustrated with some of the religious instruction they've had, and they want answers. So I have found just by listening to them, they will respect you. They will listen to you. You have to take that time to earn their trust. And it's interesting because young people are amazing. Like once you earn their trust, their devotion to you is really, it's unquestioned. I mean, and I've learned a lot from them too. They've asked some very challenging questions. They've forced me to keep studying, to keep learning different methods of delivering the teachings. And I'm grateful to all the hundreds of students I've had over the years. Now we're going to go to a commercial break. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about my book called I Am His Mother, as well as my ministry that I co-founded with my dear friend and now my comadre, Angelica Deliana, who it's called Humana Corpus Dignitate, HCDTalks for short. So the book, I Am His Mother. Being an artist, mostly a musician, but one of the little secrets of my life since I was a child is I would love to sit in my room and write. A lot of that stuff never saw the light of day. I probably threw it in the trash. I was probably really embarrassed to even share with anybody. But it was something I did. And I had written another story, actually, that's a two-part series that was published by, at the time, an independent publisher out of Missouri. She really liked my story, my writing style. God bless her. She was not a religious person, but the previous book, the first book I had published, was actually sort of a supernatural thriller, like an emotional roller coaster ride. It's complicated. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. But I was what happened was I was playing with this idea in my head about what if Mary had written a memoir? Imagine the mother of Jesus writing down what her experience was raising him. And I think the idea came from a couple of movies. I love film. I have no ambitions to act or ever to make film, but I love film. And there was a book called, a movie called Mary, Mother of Jesus that was made by NBC about 22 years ago maybe. And then there was another movie just called Jesus that was made back in '99, starring Jeremy Sisto, who is a great actor, and seen him in a couple things since then. And I just love the human story in both. One of them was just kind of like Jesus being a little more, I would say, a friend to his followers. I mean, this is a movie where he actually starts water fights at times and plays with kids. It's really nice to see. And in the Mary, Mother of Jesus, it was, showing the story of the two of them together. And, being Hispanic and, obviously we have our traditions, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and, a lot of us are very close to our moms and just, we're mama's boys. It's always, I was raised with that love and devotion of our Blessed Mother. So it just kind of came out that I started writing, and it just flowed out of me. I don't know how to explain it. My mother suspects it could have been divinely inspired, which if it is, that's wonderful. And I'm humbled by that because, wow. But I had a little help. I would listen to a lot of Marian songs while I wrote it, and kind of just took in the emotion. And one of the challenges is, even though I am a father, I have two children of my own. I'm not a mother, which means I don't know what it's like to carry the child, to deliver the child, and to have that connection that mothers have with their children. So the best thing I can say is I allowed myself to become, somewhat emotionally vulnerable. Like I kind of let that out and just allowed myself to, see, I guess you could say, the deepest part of my own love for my own children, which I'm not afraid to share because, I had that example from my own mother who loved me and my sister unashamedly. Like it didn't matter who was around. My kids are my heart and I love them, and I'm not going to hide that. So I learned that from my mom. So I imagine the love our Blessed Mother would have had for Jesus. So I kind of put that out there. So I would take a number of the gospel parts that she was featured in and kind of expand on that. So the book has those particular chapters or little quotes or something that are cited. But as far as the organization goes, I decided to get a little creative. So John the Apostle actually bookends the story. So the first part of the story is he's struggling because the community is suffering, and he just had his revelation from, that's in the book of Revelations. And he's talking about that, he was caring for our Blessed Mother, and that he found something that he didn't know she had. I guess she had, what I had was that Matthew and Luke were bringing her early drafts of their gospel and on the infancy narratives, and she was looking at them. So she looked at them alone, and no one knew, quote unquote, this is, by the way, fiction. I'm not trying to say I have lost gospel here, that she was writing a memoir of her memories of her life with Jesus. So the first part of the book is like the Annunciation, having to talk to Joseph about this. That was rough. Taking on the task of being Jesus' mother, all the way to the finding in the temple. Now, the middle I'll talk about after the last part of the book is the second half of the book is Holy Week. So it is a little tough to write, everything from arriving into Jerusalem to his passion narrative to, her having to be there when he died and the resurrection. And then the last part, the last bookend is John, and he's witnessing the Assumption and seeing her crowned in heaven. And he kind of talks about, he sees people that he doesn't recognize. He's hearing languages he doesn't know. And he starts blurting out words. He doesn't understand what they mean. But it's everything from Fatima, Lourdes, the apparition. So he's like, well, I know her work's not done. What I did to break up the story is in the middle, I decided to put 3 significant people that encountered Christ who had their lives changed by him, who, because he's been now ascending into heaven, they seek out Mary to talk to her about how their life has changed since they encountered Jesus. So we have the rich man who struggled because Christ said to be perfect, you'd have to give everything away. You have the man born blind because of the fact that his own family rejected him. And you have the woman caught in adultery. How Christ, the way he treated her, the way he looked at her, the way he loved her, the way he raised her spirits, her dignity. And, because he's gone, as far as in the flesh he's gone, they seek her out because that would be the closest to talking to someone to let them know this is how my life changed because of Jesus Christ. So the last part of this talk, we're going to talk about the ministry I co-founded with my dear friend, Angelica Deliana. HCDTalks. You can go to our website, hcdtalks.com. That is also our handle on Facebook and Instagram. Long story short, I am the theologian guy. I have the theology of the body background. She is a catechist at her parish. Her home parish is St. Philomena in Carson, which is where I'm from, so it's kind of a very special parish to me. But she's also a nurse practitioner. So when we were, we've been friends for a long time. So when we were talking about just our faith journey one day, I was telling her about theology of the body, and I kind of gave her some ideas about it, and she got really interested in it. So she ended up buying the same book that hooked me, and she loved it. And, being a medical professional, knowing a lot about the human body, she was very intrigued by a lot of what it's taught. Now, being a teacher myself and seeing how the best way to reach the kids, I was very intrigued by the idea of using science and history or whatever other disciplines I could to reach the kids. So, for example, if we talked about chastity and the importance of living a chaste life, or understanding why, for example, it's so painful to end a relationship with someone you've been sexually active with, the biology of that really tells a story. And this is, obviously given to us by science. So there's nothing to argue. It's fact. So, it's not so much, the way I deliver it with my students was here's the facts. This is why it happens. Please, feel free to look it up yourself and understand why this happens to you. And so we saw a lot of a common language, and it made, obviously I was confident in the sources I had that would teach me a lot about human physiology, but it certainly has more credibility if it's delivered by a nurse practitioner. In the same way, say, a theological teaching has more credibility if it's delivered by a theologian. So that's, us swapping. So that's why we do a lot of presentations together. Now, because of the work that we do, we like to let people know, because a lot of parents and a lot of even religious educators are not comfortable with topics such as sexual ethics, chastity, talking about sin, talking about, mental health, the whole person, if you will, homosexuality, the whole transgender phenomenon, all those things that are, abortion, divorce, euthanasia, infanticide, all these big issues that it's overwhelming. For some people, they might know a lot about it, but it's hard. I mean, I've taught classes where in my classroom with the students that I love dearly, you bring up a topic like homosexuality and abortion because of the political climate and the way that some of these kids are taught to oppose the church's teachings. The accusations, the whatever it is, you endure that. So I've had the daggers in the eyes, or the students walking out of class very angry. But even if I did my best to deliver it in a very open-minded, loving way. But for some people, that's hard for them. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy, but it's never been something that bothered me. So I'm willing to do it. So we've been available the last 2.5 years, and we've done talks at parishes, talks at schools. We've done talks virtually. We've led talks at conferences. We've led discussions on people's podcasts. We host our own podcasts wherever we're needed. We have a lot of stuff coming up the next early 2022. February is going to be stacked with a lot of stuff, from a retreat to leading a big talk at a high school to NFP talks, whatever. We're available for all that, and we're comfortable doing that. We're both certified with what we do. We're both professionals at what we do, and we can give sound teaching both theologically and medically. My partner is currently halfway through her Creighton model training, so she's working with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, teaching NFP to couples, delivering teachings to schools and parishes. They're bringing her. I now live in the Tucson area, so our ministry is a southwestern ministry that goes back and forth. But I mean, we have schools that want to bring her out here. She's already done teachings out here, as much as I've gone back home to where I'm originally from to also do teachings. We've worked together, and or me doing something alone. If you go to our website, HCDTalks.com, we have several videos of samples of us teaching, samples of us leading discussions, samples of us interviewing other people in the world of ministry to let them tell their story. We are blessed to have, Anne, and of course there's Bill and there's Kent, and you guys are in the trenches with us. And we have some other great resources, people who have left the abortion industry, to psychologists, to other theologians, to, we're blessed to have 2 spiritual advisors. Father Martin Martinez, who's my pastor at my home parish at San Martin de Porres in Sahuarita, Arizona, as well as Father Jeff Smilek, who's a former coworker of mine, who's now the campus minister at Joliet Academy in Joliet, Illinois. And I'm also very, very proud to say that we have received the blessing publicly from Bishop Mark Trudeau out of the San Pedro region of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, as well as my home bishop, Edward Weisenberger, in Tucson. So they've recognized our work, and we're blessed to have their nod. I can't think of a word to say it. I'm sorry. To publicly endorse what we do, and we seek to earn their respect and trust, and to honor their belief in our ministry by giving sound teaching. We focus not only on the science that Angelica can share from the medical standpoint. We are faithful to the church's teachings because all of our resources are based on Scripture, based on the Catechism of the Catholic Church, papal encyclicals, to any other official documents of the Church. We cite our sources. We encourage people to look at whatever sources we use, and the basis of what we teach is what the Church teaches, and not so much our personal philosophy. We are certainly looking for ways to deliver those teachings, but with the intention of it being what the Church teaches, not what we want to, not some type of narrative that we want to sell. That's where we do acknowledge that we are servants of the Church. So, with that being said, please, feel free to check out our website, HCDTalks.com. You can reach out to us at hcdtalks@gmail.com. If you're interested, obviously you can reach out to us there as well to just sort of for a talk, whether it's virtual or in person. If you have any questions on anything you've seen on our website, from our blogs to our podcasts, feel free to ask. And, we are a certified nonprofit, so any donations that you could make to help further our cause would be greatly appreciated. And we are certainly looking to take the gospel message out to the world, because we see such a need for people to really understand the dignity that they've all been afforded by God, that we're all We're all children of God. We're all worthy of being loved, and there's nothing that we have to do to earn that love. We as human beings are worthy of that love because God said so. So thank you all. Thank you, Anne, for having me. I appreciate that, giving my chance to share my faith story as well as a little bit about my book, I Am His Mother, and our ministry, HCDTalks.com. And I'll hope to see you all soon. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for that beautiful presentation to us here on Journeys in Faith. I hope that you will come back again. And to all of you watching, I wish you again a beautiful holiday season and enjoy Christmas with your family. See you next week on Journeys in Faith.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis.